you taking the time out to talk to our festival.
We're not that busy. We're in lockdown here in Toronto.
There's nothing going on.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
I'm wearing sweatpants and my lower half.
I'm going to start with a few questions, and then we'll throw it out to the crowd. Everyone should be able to hear you if you speak nice and loud from the crowd. If not, I'll just repeat the question so we'll get everybody's questions in. This was a movie that the festival director, John, and myself, we first saw this at Fantasia. As soon as it was done, I texted John and I said, I think we need to get this film, and John replied, I'm already on it. So we fell in love with this movie instantly. Amelia, is this an idea that you've had for quite a while, or was it something fairly recent? And where did the idea come from?
Yeah, I would say I probably came up with it like 3 years ago. Wow, the echo is really weird. I can hear my own voice. If I take my headphones off, maybe that's better. It was an idea I had probably like 3 years ago as I was finishing film school. I knew I wouldn't have a lot of money to make my first feature, but I really wanted to do something kind of straight out of school. So I kind of tried to think about something minimal I could do with a single location and, 3 characters. And I really wanted to tell a story through a single perspective, and kind of have a unreliable narrator. So as the audience, we're watching it through her lens, and kind of look at these dynamics between a couple and a single person, and the kind of tension that rises from that, as well as this kind of isolated location. So those were the kind of initial ideas I had.
Great. And when did you start playing with some of the horror elements that come into it?
Yeah, I mean, I knew I wanted it to be a cabin in the woods film, where the threat was kind of from the characters, like inside the cabin, rather than the kind of like killer in the woods kind of thing. So playing with those kind of expectations. And for me, cabin in the woods films are obviously definitely rooted in the horror genre. And then I like blood stuff, so that was kind of something that I knew was going to be kind of in it. There was some earlier ideas I had where it was maybe more of a kind of vampire story, but I didn't, there's a lot of vampire films out there, and so I didn't really know what I was bringing to the table that was new. So I tried to think of something that was still to do with kind of blood consumption, but maybe in a kind of different package than the vampire stuff.
Oh, that's really interesting. I like that twist on it. Lee, you had worked with Amelia before in a short called Undress Me, which is awesome. If you haven't seen it, it's available on YouTube, everybody. So how did you get involved with the feature?
Well, luckily Amelia liked working with me, and I think it goes without saying I love working with Amelia. So she just asked me to do the movie, and I said yes. I was like, we filmed a teaser for it a couple years before shooting it, Lauren and I and another actor. And so that was kind of the first time we all got to work, the 3 of us together. But I knew from the beginning that they were developing the project, and I wanted to be on. So it was just a matter of getting the grant money and getting to set.
Awesome. And Lauren, what specifically drew you to this project?
Oh, so many things. I mean, obviously, I was excited to work with Amelia. I hadn't done anything previously like Lee, but I had met her on a different short we were both working on as crew. And then I shot the teaser with Lee, like she said, so I got to meet Amelia and really work with her for the first time then. And I could I don't know, there's just something special about Amelia. I think everyone in the audience would agree too after seeing this film, but she just has such a great vision for what she wants to do. And even when we were shooting the teaser, just really, this story kind of came to life to me, and it changed from the teaser that we shot. But I think, the same kind of through line was there that I was really interested in, of like this sort of twisted friendship, and also getting to play someone who is kind of the bad guy in a sense, in a way. I had never really done that before. And after reading the script, I was just totally sold on it because I loved how it doesn't just assume the audience is stupid and give you all of the answers. I liked really kind of having to try and figure things out and like work for it. So yeah, I was just totally on board.
What was that major change? What was that major change that you saw from the teaser to the final product?
So I guess in the beginning it was the couple. So me and Brendan were both kind of stealing her blood, and we were both in on it, and it was kind of the plan from the start. And it sort of, I guess, changed from that initial idea to it being more of, it's just coming from me, and it's more of this like intimate relationship that me and Rowan have that's really dark and twisted, and Brendan's just kind of a bystander. Yeah, that was a major change that I noticed, at least.
Yeah, awesome. Anybody in the crowd like to ask anything to our guests? At the back, sir?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
My question's for Amelia, and the question is, I just feel like this movie just feels like it's absolutely dripping with dread from the beginning to the end. That's like one of the stars of the film for me is the dread that's used. And I was curious about what your cinematic inspirations would have been in getting this type of film, because you don't see this type of tone all the time.
Yeah, I mean, dread is a great word, and I feel like that's something that I really like about horror, is just that kind of atmosphere and tension of kind of like, okay, things are not okay, and they're probably not going to ever be okay, that kind of feeling. I guess some films that I drew from in terms of kind of references, definitely The Invitation. I saw that film at Fantasia in like 2016, and I knew nothing about it and just went into it. And it totally has that feeling where you're just on edge the whole time. And, kind of looking at these dynamics as well between these old friends. And then Antichrist, the Lars von Trier film as well. Because that's kind of also like, I feel like people don't like see it as a horror film necessarily, but it totally is just a Cabin in the Woods movie.
Those both make total sense. Great.
Way at the back.
Okay, I'm gonna try and shout as best I can. As a fellow somewhat young woman, I applaud all three of you for pioneering in your genre and just kicking ass. And then the second half of that would be, I guess it's sort of directed at Amelia, but the other two as well. I feel like the film had a lot of opportunity to delve into more like side plots and side stories, like for example, with her sister who passed away, or with like their actual relationship, how the two, I'm blanking on names right now, but how the two girls became friends and all that stuff. Do you have any interest in kind of furthering the world, I suppose, and like creating maybe shorts or maybe a short film series or anything that kind of expands upon what we were introduced to?
Yeah, that's a cool idea. I don't have any plans to do that, but maybe now I will. Yeah, I mean, I think that it was very intentional to leave things ambiguous. And I also know that style is not for everyone in terms of, movie going. But I think I liked the idea that kind of the film, we're only in the film for the length of the film. Like the idea that the story doesn't really begin, there's no before and after, it's very much contained. And, there is kind of backstory, but to me, a lot of times it's a bit irrelevant because it's very much like Rowan's limited perspective of things. And we're really tied to that and very much like Rowan's emotional journey. So a lot of times in the script, I felt like these kind of extra things weren't necessary. And I kind of liked leaving them ambiguous. Obviously, it's a very ambiguous film, but kind of letting the audience draw from certain things, like the sister, for example, the same way Rowan is kind of projecting her own narrative onto these little tidbits she's getting. So kind of letting those things parallel each other. I don't know if that answers your question.
I feel like that's part of the reason why the script was fun to pick up as an actor too, because Amelia didn't spell out all the details. So Lauren and I had the great joy to fill in the blanks for ourselves, for our characters. And I think we probably filled in different things in the blanks sometimes. Like we have our own interpretation of what was really going on. But that was part of the fun of figuring it all out.
Yeah. I think that was also, Amelia, like I've heard you say this before, something you were exploring of like, you know, when you're sometimes in a friend dynamic and you're just projecting your own ideas onto what's actually going on. And I think we do that a lot with, you know, in friendships, and we get, you know, self-conscious. We question people's motives sometimes, but it's really just like all, you know, just coming from our brain. So yeah, me and Lee had a lot of freedom. I actually asked Amelia, like at one point I was like, is Emily really doing this? Like, is she stealing her blood? And she was like, you decide, because I have to stay in Rowan's mindset because the film is essentially her point of view. So like, what do you think is happening? And you choose and you play it the way that like you think it's happening. Yeah, like Lee said, it was really amazing as actors to have those kind of freedoms that you wouldn't normally have.
I think if you're in the Canadian film industry, you should embrace the winter, which all three of you have in this project and other projects. But from a few things I read, there were some issues maybe when you first arrived at the cabin. Can you tell us, was there any challenges filming in the middle of the winter in Canada?
Not at all.
Yeah, I mean, what you see on snow's not a problem. Yeah, what you see in the film is definitely like what we experienced. There was a crazy snowstorm at one point, and we were contending against that. And we were also shooting kind of end of January, beginning of February. So it was a lot of buildup of ice and snow. And the cabin was kind of on top of this little hill, which normally wouldn't be a problem, but because of all the snow and ice, it was just a pain to get up there. So equipment was a bit of a challenge. And Lauren also had an injury a few months prior. So that's why she has a limp in the film. And her leg was still in a lot of pain. So we had to actually like bring her up on a sled each day to set because she couldn't walk up the hill. But we made it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an adventure. The well also froze over. So there wasn't running water. So the production team had to bring up water on that winch. Yeah, it was. I think everything like that you would imagine could happen in a Canadian winter happened. And doing like outdoor scenes in the cold is like a whole other kind of challenge. But yeah, it was kind of fun too because we really roughed it together. Yeah.
Well, the Canadian audience is going to know if you've computer generated that, so it needs to be real.
Yeah, that was definitely real snow.
Although I kind of think like it's so pretty in that scene where I'm coming out of the cabin, which is a dark moment, but quite a beautiful shot of all the snow swirling, that it like almost looks fake because it looks so good in my humble opinion. Like the swirls, it's
we
gorgeous.
Just lucked out that we shot that day and there was that storm and it all kind of, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many days did it take you to shoot the film?
It was like 17 and a half days, mainly all in the cabin and then some exteriors. And then 1 day in Montreal. The bathroom was actually not part of the cabin. That was in an apartment in Montreal. That our production designer added that amazing wallpaper to make it feel like we were in the cabin.
You at the front, sir?
Hi. So this is more a comment. I more just wanted to commend you on what I feel is a really amazing, heartfelt depiction of anxiety, depression, like that type of stress and everything. I find so many movies where they try to do that, they don't succeed. I think you really succeeded. I don't want to get into the questions of like, oh, where did it come from? Well, that's where you said it like go personal, but just commend you on. I think it is a really powerful movie on that front.
Thank you.
The back.
That's great. It's great to hear.
Can I backtrack a little bit to a couple questions ago?
Sure can.
Okay, so I love the like build your own adventure thing that you have happening with the cast. I think that that's really cool that they get to choose what's happening. But for you, so coming from Rowan's point of view, do you have an exact idea of what you want to happen, or from Emily's point of view, like you have a way that it goes front to back? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like neither woman is completely innocent, or, you know, they're both pretty flawed people. And I think Emily definitely has, you know, an element of maybe kind of Munchausen by proxy, you know, the idea that she kind of is harming Rowan in order for Rowan to need her. So I think that that's definitely going on. I think it's maybe not necessarily going on to the extent that Rowan has it in her head. I think that's more about the way I see it is not whether it's real or not. It's just like to what extent, because I think definitely neither woman is completely innocent, and definitely Emily is doing things to, you know, she wants to be in control, and she needs to be needed, and that's like the main aspect of her character. So it's definitely things she's done to try to keep Rowan there. It's kind of, is she, you know, consuming her blood? I don't know.
A question for Lee. Lee, I was reading an article and you had a quote in there that said, I always want to make stories and tell stories that scare me a bit. I wonder if you could expand on that. Did you mean scare me as if, as in it gives you nightmares, or do you mean scare me as in it gives me a bit of anxiety that I'm not sure if I can pull this role off? Can you explain what you meant there a bit and why that's important?
Sure. I mean, maybe a bit of both. Definitely when I don't remember when I said that, but I'm sure I said that because I always want to work on anything that scares me, because I think that forces you to grow. And as a performer, if you're playing roles that don't scare you, then you're probably playing yourself or a close version of yourself. And I'm pretty much as far away as you can get from Rowan. I'm sure that I have similarities with her. Like I fell in love with her while playing her. And, I can obviously relate to her because I was in her shoes for many days on end. But I didn't know if I could do it when I showed up on set. Like I just had to kind of trust in Lauren, trust in Amelia, trust in all the great crew and Ari as well, that we would just get it done. But yeah, like I was terrified. So I'm glad that we were able to pull it off. But I also really love dark, dangerous stories. I think maybe it's because I've had a very, I live in Canada. I've had like a pretty charmed life in many ways. So I think I love to sort of see the dark side of humanity, because I think it's something that we all have in common. This capacity to do bad and to feel dark, dangerous, scary things. And we don't always talk about it except when we're making movies. And horror is such a wonderful place to be able to go so deep and so dark into who we are as humans and how that can actually define us, not just the good stuff, but the bad stuff too.
That's interesting. I was thinking the same thing as I watched this again, that I really liked how miserable everybody's lives were, but I don't want my life to be like that. So I was being miserable vicariously through them, I guess. To build on what you said, Lee, what other projects do you have coming up? What can we expect next from you?
Well, Amelia and I are developing a project together. So I came on late in production as a producer on this film. And I consider myself a filmmaker, not just an actor. Not that there's anything wrong with being just an actor, but I love all of it. Like I love the boring organizing and the creative problem solving and the teamwork. Like I love making films. So I'm excited to be developing some projects with Amelia, and I have some other, I have a short film that I produced coming out next year that I have some exciting news that I can't announce about yet, but stay tuned for news about that. It's a short that I made with a collaborator of mine called Sam McLean.
Great. Okay, I think I'm going to save the what's next question for Amelia and Lauren, because we're going to talk to you both again after the next film that we watch. So we appreciate your time. Lee, it was really nice meeting you virtually. We hope that the short film is ready for the Saskatoon Fantastic Film Festival next year. Okay.
Yeah, we'll submit. I don't know. We might have already submitted. No, it's too early to submit, but we will submit.
Okay, awesome. All right. So again, we just want to thank you so much for your time. Lee, it was great to meet you. And Lauren and Amelia, I've got some more questions for you after we watched the next feature that you're in.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Thanks
for
everyone.
watching,
Thanks,
guys.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.